Hello to everybody. Hello, Colin. It seems that we are live. Everything turned out to be okay.
Good to be here. Good to be here. Hello to everybody watching.
Hello. Yeah, so it's a new week. It's a new session of ExpatLife. I'm very happy to be here again, and I'm very excited with my guest today, Colin Lovering. I hope everybody that watches us will enjoy this interview. Let's begin. Hello, Colin. How are you today?
I'm good. It's good to see you, albeit virtually, but it's good to see you. Happy to be here.
Yeah, we just had a little chat before going live, and I missed to say that I'll be in Bucharest in June. I hope we'll get the chance to meet in person for the first time. I mean, we've had a couple of chats online virtually, as you said, and I would really love to get to meet you in person. So let's see if we can schedule that.
Absolutely.
Great. So let's just start. I'm very excited with this interview, and I just want to get inside with the questions. Just for the people who are watching, please tell us where you were born and where do you live now?
Okay, well, I was actually a product of the British Army, so I was born in Mönchengladbach in Germany.
Wow.
Many years ago. And then when I was about 2 years old, my family moved to the UK. And that's where I spent most of my adult life. And in fact, there's lots in between, which I guess we're going to talk about. But at the moment, I live in Bucharest, just outside Bucharest, Romania, where I've lived for 30, I calculated, I think it's 13 and a half years that I've been here.
Wow, great.
So, yeah, I'm an honorary Romanian.
Yeah, you are. You actually, I'm losing in the count because you'll live more than me. I've lived in Romania 20 years. You still have some years to go, but you are getting closer. So I'll be less Romanian than you in a while. I didn't know you were born in Germany. So yeah, you've moved a bit in Europe. Okay, very nice. So just if you want, just let us know shortly, where else have you lived before, different from your hometown, in different countries, different experiences?
Sure. Well, I had when I was in my mid-30s, I was, we'll talk about it later, I guess, but in terms of the career and things, I had a very successful career in sales and from organization. They asked me to take on a role, so I lived just outside trainer, if you like, for Europe. 3 years, that went me off say so for 3 years. And then from that went back to the north of England for a few years, and then I made my transition to Romania, as I said, 13 and a half years ago.
Interesting. Yeah. So you know a lot about the European culture. You know a lot about how different countries are when living also, but when doing business, because it's very important. If you've been a salesperson, if you've been a sales expert, or you are a sales expert, of course, we never stop learning, then it's very important to know those different issues, different cultural differences that we have between countries. Okay, if you want to share with us what's your marital status, if you have children, great.
Well, I had two, when I was 23 years old, I had 2 children. So I was a young starter as a father.
Great.
Those children have obviously grown up, and I'm also a grandfather. So I've got a 7-year-old grandson, Freddie, and in December I was blessed with another grandson, Nicholas. So I'm a grandfather to two. I'm married to Karina, who's Romanian. We're actually celebrating our wedding anniversary next week. So we've known
Amazing.
7 years. And
Oh, great.
but the hardest thing for her was when I had to start calling her a grandma, which she's getting used to, which is good. I'm very proud to be a grandmother.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's a very nice experience. I can imagine. I'm already late. I'm not a mother, so maybe I'll be a grandmother like Corina, right? And political grandmother. You never know. Amazing. Yeah. Like life gives us so many opportunities and we have to take them, definitely. Okay, let's see. So now you are, I see you as a young professional, probably with your studies. And what made you move to a different country? Was it something that happened in your life that influenced this change? Like in general, like I can imagine, I mean, you said you've traveled a bit before moving to Romania, but what happened? What made you move from
Well,
England?
I would say I had a good young childhood, but it was I never sort of knew my destiny. I wanted my goal was, or my dream was, to be a graphic designer, and that's what I sort of studied in graphic design. But I always had this sort of creativity, and it kind of took me into a design packaging world that I sort of started my career. But I would say my most significant part of my younger career was, and it sounds strange, but it was probably the most significant part of my life in many ways, was passing my driving test.
Wow. How
I didn't
come?
pass my driving test till I was about 28 years old. And suddenly this world literally opened up to me. I went in terms of that moved me into the sales position that I moved into, but it also opened the world up to me, and it was kind of and the adventure started then. So I kind of, I mean, it was a tough move because it meant sort of moving away from the town I'd spent a lot of time with and the people. But I took the move. I was very passionate about my career. I still am, but it kind of forced the move, and that's really sort of started my successful sales career, which brought me to the point I mentioned earlier about going to France and then going to the USA. And it's probably all rooted in that one day when I passed my driving test, was probably the most significant moment.
Oh, it's amazing that you could identify. I mean, it's so meaningful, even if it's like a metaphorical moment when you can drive, like you even gain more freedom because you can just put your body in a vehicle and move away wherever you want. Of course, to go to USA, you have to take a plane. But we have this thing in common because I felt the same. I also had my driving license late, but then I'm totally in love with driving, with the feeling, that the freedom that gives you, the way you have that freedom and that independence, then you can relatively choose wherever you want to go, whenever you want to go. Yeah, it's an amazing feeling. So that's a very nice point in your life. And I'm happy that you have a driving license.
Still.
Okay, so now you had so many experiences. How do you think it made you feel being an expat? I assume it changed through time, like everything does. We don't have the same feelings towards a situation when we are 20, 30, 40, and so on. So what does expat mean to you? Do you feel an expat?
It's a good question. I guess it's kind of a posh name for an immigrant, because
Exactly.
we label people in different ways. But an expat is labeled in a professional capacity, I guess.
Yes.
But
yes.
I guess you're looking for advice on this chat, and I think one of the advice for people I'd always give is when you are an expat is to respect the country you're in, but also give something back. So even if it's on a 3-year assignment with a corporation, forget about that. But just put yourself into the culture and enjoy the moment, enjoy the experience that you get. also give something back. So whether it's voluntary or speaking at schools or universities or whatever you can do, but make sure you give something back. And that's when it's really about at the end of the 3 years or the 4 years, 5 years, you can look back and say, okay, what was my legacy? What did I leave behind there? Or did I just go there just to get a nice high-paid expat job and then I left the country without any care? So it's really you're making sure you give something back, I think is my best advice.
Amazing. Yeah, you are totally right. And that gives you satisfaction in return as well, because when you try to get to know the people, the culture, it's so much richer, the experience. Yeah. I had that instinctively. I did that instinctively, but doing it consciously is even better because you can even earn more, get more out of that experience. Thank you so much. And do you remember any, I don't know, I mean, I can imagine you have a full list of cultural differences or customs that you had to get used to, that you discover, but can you share with us some of them?
Sure. I think, well, talk about Romania, I guess, because this has been my sort of longest time, but even in the US and France, there were more habits than cultures, because at the end, what you do discover when you're traveling and living in different countries, that there's a common sense of humor. Sense of humor is something that doesn't have any barriers. There's different type. There's darker humor. So in Romania, there's sarcasm, and it's a very dark sarcasm, whereas in England, it's a very light, funny sarcasm. So you do have those differences. But you talked about selling earlier on. Selling, negotiating, doing business, shaking hands. It's very similar in most countries. But one thing I learned from Romania is it's very like the British are very people orientated. So we're very sort of focused on one-to-one relationships, and we're overly polite in many ways. And what I found when I came to Romania, the first thing was how much more direct and task orientated people were. And it's really efficiency, sometimes over efficiency. So what part of my training is I'm training, but I'm also learning. I'm training people to be more people orientated, so have that efficiency, but have that human touch as well, which I think is much stronger here in Romania than it was when I first came. And Definitely. Then vice versa, it's made me much more efficient and effective in what I'm doing. Whereas in the past, I would be doing something and it wasn't quite good enough, but I would say, that'll be okay. But now I'm like, no, it won't be okay. I need to do it efficient. So I think what you learn from cultures, you kind of learn from each other. And again, if you go to a country with an arrogance of you are better than them, you'll fall flat on your face. So that's something I didn't do, and I'm quite open to be learned things and taught things, and as much as I possibly can. So in answer to the question, there's not that many differences. It's more habits and the way that people do things. In Romania, for instance, it's interesting, the culture, the family and traditional culture here is exactly the same as it was when I was 8 years old. But over the last few years in the UK, because of the way that life is, and fast food, for instance, fast food entered the UK in the late 70s. Suddenly the dinner table was empty and people were eating off their lap fast food. Whereas in Romania, you still see families eating at the dinner table. But over the last 2 or 3 years, I've started to see more and more and more of the fast food culture coming in. So there are those differences, but if you look at the cultures deep down, they're pretty much the same. It's just the habits, the style of living is changing depending on the country. I hope Romania doesn't lose its values in terms of family and tradition.
Yeah, I think we are in danger to do that, and I'm sure that it will happen in a big part of the country. I hope so as well, that we can maintain our traditions. It's not easy though, because the outside influence, we all know what happens. I mean, you already said it, the fast food entered UK in the 70s, and Romania will be a victim as well. So yeah, we'll be all, but we will have our English friends, our UK friends to help us and see how we can overcome that. Very interesting.
That would just help
point.
you get. That would just help you get fatter.
Yeah.
I'm joking. No, I'm
Yeah,
joking.
we'll just
I'm
open
sorry.
gyms. We'll just open more gyms in Romania, and we'll put Nadia Comaneci all over the place, so we can remember the times when we were gymnasts and we won all the Olympics, but not anymore. Okay, let's see what happens. It's a very interesting point of view, and I like that detail where you say it's not so much about culture, different culture, but it's more about habits, and definitely that's true, because the place also marks those habits. And also I like the part that you mentioned about our obsession with doing things perfectly, and we are very direct people. When we talk business, we don't even think about anything. We are very much results oriented. But I think we can blend those two parts.
But you are already. It's changing. It's changing. It's definitely changing, I think. Yeah.
Great. I'm happy that we have an observer there that can see, because I'm sure Romanian people don't even realize it, but I'm sure you do. Okay, let's keep on going. How do you maintain yourself? Because you're an Englishman, so you have to be, it's like an Englishman in New York, you're an Englishman in Bucharest. How do you maintain the connection with your country? How do you stay connected to your home country?
Yeah, it's a good question. The wonders of Zoom. If there wasn't things like Zoom and other platforms, it would be very, very tough. Fortunately, I think it depends on your circumstances. So I don't have any young children that I'm distant from. My kids are grown up because I had them. We had them when I was very young. They've grown up as my friends. So that personal connection is fine. We can sometimes not. In fact, we're due for a Zoom call if they're watching this. But we often have a Zoom call and get a bottle of wine out and everything else. And 4 hours later, we're doing that. So I had that connection. I'm chairman of the British Romanian Chamber of Commerce, so I'm representing the UK in Romania. I'm flying the flag for Romania, for the UK, but I'm also flying the flag for Romania and vice versa as well. So I kind of, where is home? I think when I land at Otopeni Airport in Bucharest, I'm coming home. I will say with my kids, because Daniel and Matthew, they were kind of saying to me, Dad, are you thinking about the time when you would need to come back to the UK because you've got grandchildren and etc. And I said yes, and it was kind of on my mind. And then at our wedding day, or around the wedding, they took me to one side, they're more like my father than my sons. They kind of said to me, "Don't worry about what we said. We see where your happiness is. Your happiness is here in Romania. Let's just make sure that we see more of each other." So that's how I sort of get that balance. I do commit myself to Romania in my life. This is my home, and I'm really dedicated to that. But I do whenever I can get to the UK or people come over to see us and do that really. So it's a balancing act really.
You try to balance. It's amazing what you just said about Romania. I mean, it's so genuine that you can discover that inside of you, like your love and your being so satisfied, and even getting to find that happiness in a different country, such a different place than your home. I'm really happy that you have that in your life and you can enjoy being there. Okay, very nice. You have also your kids supporting you, your kids that are not so kids anymore, but yeah, they still are. Even if yeah, sure, they're always kids. Very nice. Okay, so I want to round up this block about expat life, and we'll continue with our professional block. Tell me, how has living abroad affected you, your personal and your professional development? And if you want to put an advice or two for the people that maybe are thinking about moving abroad, or what?
I think Yeah, I say to everybody, or even if you're happy with the company that you're working with, always be building your CV. Always look at your CV because that's really your life. It's like looking at a map of the world. If you love to travel, then you can look back and say, "Wow, this is the last 20 years. This has been a significant part of my life." Same with the CV. So I think always be looking at accelerating your career. And it doesn't always happen, but I think when you do go overseas, the experience and exposure you get does give you more confidence to, and I'll give you an example of it. When I was in the US, I was in San Diego, California, and I had an audience of 500 people to do a one-man stand-up show about sales.
Wow.
And it was my first ever presentation to the US teams. So there was like, well, you got this Colin, this Brit. What's he going to do? There was that skepticism, and I probably spent more time preparing for that than I did anything else. But the most significant outcome of that was really the accolade that I got afterwards. People coming up to me and say, "Wow, that was the best training, the best experience I've ever had in my life," etc., etc., etc. So it's really sort of pushing yourself out of the comfort zone, I think, and doing those things. But yeah, and I'll tell you how I became to go into the US. I read there's a writer, Robert Cialdini, The Power of Influence or The Power of Persuasion. Kind of, we always say about what's a significant book in your life. That was probably very significant. And this power of influence is incredible. So what I did, I was working in France, and I was kind of, every time I met one of the senior members of the organization, I'd say, "Hey, hi, how are you? I'm looking forward to applying for the job in the US." And they go, "Oh, you want to apply for that, do you?" And I just told lots of people this. It's a true story. When it came to the board meeting in Saddlebrook, New Jersey, USA, and it came to the subject of who was going to replace this guy who was the current global training and leadership, everybody around the table said, "Well, it's Colin, isn't it?" And he said, "Okay." So it didn't even go out to tender. I got the job because of that. So that's really the advice I'd say is, living abroad, it's great, but really maximize the time, get that on your CV, but also use that time to influence and accelerate your career going forward as much as you possibly can. So in all, I'd recommend it to anybody, basically.
Amazing, yeah, definitely such a nice story. I see how you created your own road, right? You had your desires, your visions, your goals, and then you were just trying to build on that, right? And it happened at the end. It happened.
I think so, and without sounding like a patronizing old man, I'd say to especially in the younger generation, through COVID, I think it changed people's perception. We're in a very delicate world in terms of human activity and what we can say and what we can't say and our rights and everything else. It's become very sensitive and delicate. And that would be the message I would say to people is don't have the attitude of, well, I'm good enough. The opportunities are going to come to me, well, they better do because I deserve it. It ain't like that anymore. You've really got to reach out and do exactly what I did, but do it in your own way and really reach out and as I said, create those opportunities and influence those opportunities. Don't wait for the world to provide you something because it won't.
Okay, so I can imagine with your extensive career, you must have had so many, I don't know, experiences, different experiences. Can you share with us a particularly memorable experience or whatever comes to mind, like as an impactful experience?
I think it was a learning I had because I actually worked for the same company for 18 years, but every 3 years I got promoted, which again, going back to what I said, that's how I did it. But I think the most important thing for me and the best advice I can give to people, I remember when I got that job in the USA, I was actually in Florida at a conference, and there was one of the vice presidents of the company and a gentleman called Abe. And he came up to me and he said, "Hey, I won't do the American accent. He said, hey, Colin, you know, congratulations on the role." He said, "Who's going to replace you?" And I said, "It's a guy called Cedric, a French guy in France, Cedric." And he said, "No, not that job, this job." And I laughed at him. I said, "Hang on a minute, I haven't even started it yet." He said, "From day one, you should be starting to think about who's going to take your job. If you want to further your career and get to where you want to go, you need to nurture people, not put a door behind you and block succession and people behind you." And he said to me, "The greatest manager is one that surrounds himself with people much more cleverer than he is. So do that. And then when that opportunity does come along, you won't have any problem by saying, oh, well, how the hell are we going to replace Colin? Because Colin has already nurtured those people to take his place. So it doesn't stop your succession going on. So that's really probably the greatest, not so much experience, the greatest learning I have is to respect everybody who works for you and around you, and nurture them, help them, educate them, whatever words you want to use, but to help them grow. Because if you don't do that, you might say in 20 years' time, well, I've been a manager with this company for 20 years, but you probably haven't achieved much and you probably haven't got much of a satisfaction and your salary probably hasn't moved much in all that time. So always be looking at the next challenge. And Abe, if he's watching this, thank you very much. It's probably the greatest advice I ever had.
It's amazing. Yeah, definitely. And I will make sure I put it into practice. I had to wait a couple of years longer in my last job because I didn't know how to do that. Because of course, when you reach a level where you have some responsibility or big responsibility, you can move out of that job, like disappear. You need to find that person who will take your place. So yeah, I didn't knew that because I haven't met you, Colin, back then. And I had to suffer 2-3 years trying to build that that person. Yeah. And
absolutely.
Definitely it's one of the ways you get promoted or you get to move on in your career as well, because you can leave easily from your current position. Amazing. Thank you so much. Very, very wise advice. Okay, so now let's dive into the professional block. Tell us a bit more about your job experiences. What companies have you worked for, if you can mention them, or what roles have you?
Yeah, sure. Well, as I mentioned earlier on, I didn't quite graduate in graphic design because I wanted to go work with the BBC. But during my student holidays, I was working with a company just holidays, earning some money. But they realised the creativity I had. It was in the packaging business, and they started doing packaging design for some of the big major store groups in the UK. And I kind of liked it, and they offered me a full-time job, so that's what I did. So I worked in the flexible packaging business for a few years, and then I moved into the protective packaging business with a company called Sealed Air Corporation, which is American, as a salesperson. So I talked earlier on about my evolution after I passed my driving test, and I woke up one morning and realized I was in sales. So I took that further and I was offered this job. And then fast forward 18 years. So as I said, I had every 3 years I got promoted into different positions. And then that sort of brought me to just before I came to Romania. So I guess you're going to ask me about my transition into Romania and how that happened. So yeah. I'd half set up a consultancy. People were saying to me that I should do it. And I was thinking, okay, I've had a corporate life for these years, time to make a change. So I kind of put my feet in the water and tested the water. And there was a company in Romania. I came over, did some consultancy work for them. But the major move was there was a British company here that I did some training with. And the word got out, and I had another company here who said, I heard you did some trainings with those guys. Can you come and talk to us? So I came back over to Romania, and I came back over. And after a very short period of time, I fell in love with the country, which most expats do anyway, because I mentioned the traditions and family life. It's a very easy and safest country I've ever lived in my life. So it's very easy to start to settle down and everything else. And that's really I decided to make a full commitment to Romania and officially set up a company and really sort of built it from there. I set it up. I allowed myself 500 euros. I opened up an account and I put 500 euros in it. With that, I had to pay to set up the website, which I did myself, and the accountants and all the other things, business cards and all that stuff. But I was determined not to break into my own money, but just put that 500 euros in. That drove me in the early years. So every single thing that I paid for, whether I filled up the car, now I'm filling the car up and I'm not looking at the dial. I'm just waiting till it clicks full. Somebody else is doing it for me. But in those days, I was clicking it because I knew 200 lei. Yeah, so I only want to spend 200 lei. So I did that. It was a great discipline for me. And even now today, when I'm quoting somebody, I don't think of that quote in numbers. I think of what that will pay for. But whether it's the mortgage, whether it's my health insurance, whether it's the next trip on a holiday trip or whatever, I put everything into what it's going to provide. And that helps me sort of really look at everything I do and make me do everything in a more calculated, more sort of passionate way, if you like. So that's kind of the story, and that's still where I am now. It's taken time, and I'm still navigating different ways, as we had a chat before the call, looking at different ideas and everything else. Yeah, I mentioned to you that I've learned to say no, which is the greatest learning I ever taught myself. As you know, as business coaches, we tend to coach everybody else, but don't coach ourselves. So
definitely, we would need our personal coach, to keep an eye on us. So yeah, it's so nice to know that you were so careful at the beginning, and I think it's a very good exercise, even if you don't need it. I'm sure that it's very useful, so you can learn how to take care of the money, right? And to be able to make the difference between spending and bringing value, right? Well, spending and investing, more or less. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, surely you kind of dived into the how you started your own business in this country, but I would like you to give us a bit of more detail in that. So where are you right now? What are you doing right now? I know you've collaborated also with a university. You've worked with a few big companies in Romania, kind of, as you said, ear to mouth to ear. I don't know how you say it in English. And tell us a bit more about what you are doing right now.
Okay, well, you half answered the question for me, so that's great. So I'm still an associate lecturer with the University of Bucharest, going back to putting something back into the country. So I do that. Obviously, I don't charge for that, but that's something I do with pleasure. It's a sales and marketing degree that I contribute to. The consultancy is still going strong. I have, I think it's nearly 10 years ago, I came on board with a company to the market leader in office design and build. I was commercial director for a little bit, and now I'm the old man, the advisor, the performance coach. Yeah, and a bit of a sales guy as well at the same time. So, I love my time with this company. It's been a precious time. And so I'm doing that. I've got the consultancy. I'm president or chairman of the British Romanian Chamber of Commerce. And then last year I took on the role as global brand ambassador for Carpathian single malt whiskey, which is the first ever single malt whiskey from Romania. So that's been quite literally a journey.
Definitely.
But the great thing about it is it's given me an opportunity, giving back again is to spend half of my time talking about an amazing product, but spend half of my time introducing Romania to people around the world, and that's been the most pleasurable. I think the biggest satisfaction. We talk about money, we talk about career, but I think there's no greater satisfaction for me than when people say, "Thank you for saying that. I really enjoyed that, and I enjoy your that giving something like that." Sometimes it's in business, sometimes it's pure pleasure, but I think that's the motivator for me, and that role gives me an opportunity. I'm in traveling to Oslo tomorrow, so we'll be in Norway at a big event on Monday, doing exactly the same and introducing people to a great product and Romania. So that's my life at the moment, and squeezed amongst that is my game of golf.
Oh, really?
And my indicator is not my bank balance. It's my golf game, and I know that if my golf game is good, I'm getting that balance in life, and that's important. I think for everybody is make sure you have something that sort of gives you that balance. Otherwise, it doesn't work really. So that's me where I am at the moment.
It's I know what you mean. Is that indicator that when you first look at it, it seems like it doesn't have anything to do with your professional and personal life, but our performance in sport has anything to do with it. If our mind is not clear and focused, the ball doesn't get in the hole. So
sure. Yeah, absolutely.
I am also, I use sports. When you go to the gym is different because then you can take it out. But I know that that kind of sports where you have to like be very focused is different. So it's a good.
And I think whether you're in the gym or on a golf course, don't look to your right and left to what other people are doing or how they're playing or how they're looking. Just focus on yourself. And there are limits. We all have a limit. Be happy with your limit and live around it. I know my golf game is never going to be much better than what it is now, but you know what? I'm happy with it. I'm happy with it, and that's where I want to stay.
Definitely, it's a way of being outside and enjoying a different activity. Okay, so tell me then, your main activity is the consultancy, and then you have that. I'm sure that you like kind of try to enrich and help all the businesses you get in contact with, of course. And tell me a bit about the areas of expertise. How do you help your clients? How is that process when you start to work with a business?
Yeah, I think it's I call myself a business performance company. And basically, and it's not as difficult and complex as it sounds, really, because basically what I do is just go into organizations. If I say to any business leader, how's business, there's not many would say it's perfect. There'll always be something that they want to improve. And so what Colin does is really sort of go in and observes. So that's kind of a bit of a consultancy. I observe through my experience. That's a good thing. I've had a long career in many ways, and I know that's a strength, and that's a strength
Definitely.
that I can convince people of my experience. I've been there. I've got the T-shirt and everything else. So that's really the value that I can bring is that experience, but also that honest observation. So I can go into a company. I did one recently. I can't mention the name, but if you think of one of the biggest global shipping companies. And I did a project with them, and they thought it was a simple, we need to get our sales performance better. It turned out it became a change management and leadership program, even one of the directors. So what I will do is actually observe the real root of the problem rather than what they perceive it is. So, and I think people are confident for me to do that because when they speak to me, they trust me basically that I'm going to go and do that really. So trust, I think, is a big thing.
Yeah, we will go to trust, because I think it's one of the the main pillars of relationships in business, even in personal life, but we'll stick into the professional realm. Let's see now, continuing a bit in this area. So what is your main goal as a professional in your field? What do you think you want to accomplish more, or what you want your clients to accomplish more?
Yeah, well, I think obviously focus on business performance, but what I do is that I always insist on going back. So I'm not a one-hit wonder. I don't just go in and do something and then exit and pay and get the invoice paid. So I will always insist that I go back. I'm working with an oil company in Romania at the moment, and we finished the program, but in 3 weeks' time, I'm going back to them, and we're going to all get together socially, and I'm going to get the feedback from them, because I say to them, I want to look in your eyes, and I want you to look in my eyes and say to me, Colin, you made a difference. And that's really the commitment I make. I guarantee to people that there will be a difference made. And I say that without being arrogant or overconfident. I just say it through my own experiences, making sure that I focus on the right things and challenge the norms and achieve it. So I think that's the main thing that I think I achieve, is being able to go back. Yeah, and I always say, if you can't get a recommendation or a testimonial for one of your clients, you've done a bad job.
Yeah.
So that's my goal. And I remember years ago. I'll mention the book, because I wrote a book, A Day in the Life of Exceptional Sales Professionals, and one of the stories in there is my old boss years and years ago, a big man, big guy. And I remember it was one January morning, and I was freezing to death, and I went on a sales call with him. And I did a really, really nice call, and I thought everything went well. And I was walking across the car park, and I was sliding on the ice, and we got into the car. And all I wanted to do was to start that engine and get the heater going. Before I could start it, this huge, great hand came over the top of mine and said, before you start the engine, what are they saying about you right now? What are they thinking about you right now? If somebody walks in and said, who is that? And they said, I was Colin from Field Air, the company. How did the meeting go? The response is not going to be, let me tell you about the portfolio of the company and Colin's experience. It's going to be an emotional, I like him. I like what he said. I like the way that he treated us. I think we can do business with him. So that's always something that I think every single person watching this, whatever meeting you have, even if it's cool, what are people going to be thinking when this is? Are they going to be thinking, oh my God, I'm glad that's finished? Or are they going to be thinking, well, that was good. I really enjoyed listening to you, Anna and Colin, and the interaction and the advice. It was good. And that's the goal, even if it's just a meeting with your boss.
Definitely, yeah.
Colleague, always have a goal that's how you want it to be. And if you can do that, that's it. It's really, the way that it's not what we say, it's how we say it is really the key to it. So that's really my goal with my clients, is having that memorable experience, but also having that measurable impact that I've made, so I can proudly walk back through the door. Don't necessarily have to do business with them ever again, but
definitely, yeah, sure. That business must be a consequence. It doesn't have to be the main goal. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's a switch we have to make when we start our professional life. Yeah, we have to think about, as you said earlier on, about the legacy. Okay, let's go to the trust. I like this. I think it's a kind of like a tricky question, at least for Romanian people. We always laughed about this question, but I'm sure you're not Romanian. So why should people trust and choose you, and do the work with you?
Okay, well, I tell you what, let's break down the word trust. So for me, and again, I'll say to anybody listening, if you're meeting a client tomorrow, or you're meeting somebody tomorrow, it doesn't matter who it is, or a colleague, there's 3 things that you need to achieve linked around trust. These are my sort of 3 pillars of trust, but it's both ways. So you have to have them having the same feeling as you do, and that's how you build. And the first one is integrity. Integrity is a key part of trust and long-term consistent integrity. So you can actually ask yourself the question: am I displaying integrity with this person? Even if you're dealing with somebody who may be a little bit dodgy or notorious for maybe taking a brown envelope with some money in it, whatever. Don't let that put you off laying down your ethics and integrity in the way that you do business, because it's actually, in fact, if you're dealing with somebody who may be susceptible to that, it's a great way of educating them, and it makes it difficult for them not to do business with you. Because if you lay down the things about how ethical and how your integrity is thing, if they don't do business with you, they're kind of admitting that they only do business with people who maybe give them it's a strange thing to say. So integrity is number one. The second one is ability. It's really have that confidence in your ability, and make sure that people are aware of that. So when they ask you a negative question, greet it. Say, look, I'm well, what about, I heard that there was a mistake with ABC. Really greet that with, I'm really glad you asked me that. It gives me the opportunity, if I may, just to take a couple of minutes to explain this to you and what I've done about it. So it's just having being very, very sort of confident but proud in your ability, but also willing to learn from that person as well. I'm interested in your thoughts about that. So integrity, ability, and the final one is a wonderful word called benevolence. Care. So the question is do you really care about that person in front of you? And more importantly, in many ways, does that person really care about you? And that's when it comes into that interpersonal relationship that you have. And that's where I say about, I teach a thing about the art of business adaptability. It's really about knowing who you are and knowing which personality style. We've seen lots of, I'm not going to go into what I do, but those personality styles tend to be 4 styles. And so statistically, if you're one of those styles, let's say you're the socializer type, statistically, 75% of the people you're talking to are likely not to be a socializer style, same as you. So statistically, 75% of the people you talk to may not like the way that your style or the way that you present or your level of voice interaction or whatever. There may be something. If it's another socializer, happy days.
Yeah.
But that's a theory. And that ability
You have
to
a
sort of
match.
sit in front of somebody and recognize that they're a little bit different to you, and treat them the way they want to be treated. That's when you can really build that, you build the integrity and the trust in general, but you can certainly build that benevolence in that. And that's where I said, with my dear old boss with a hand over my hand, what are they saying about you right now? It's not about, the reason why we go to our favorite restaurant is not always because of the good food. We may even have had an uncooked chicken in that restaurant, but because of the way that they dealt with that problem, it becomes our favorite restaurant. Our favorite, look at the UK. You can go to a street and there can be 6 bars. The Guinness, let's say, can be exactly the same.
The same.
But you go to one bar for a particular reason, not because of the Guinness, because of the ambience or the way the people greet you. Hey, Colin, good to see you again. Is it the usual, my friend? That's the way you do business with them. I have no idea what question I was answering there because I went off on one.
You
trust,
definitely
trust.
The one with the trust. It's a very good answer, a very extensive and very detailed answer. So it's good to know that, as you said, you gave your own view, your own definition of the word trust, and you parted it into these three pillars. Okay, let's move a bit and keep. I think for as I said, I think that these are very interesting questions. Let's see how you can explain or how you can tell us what sets you apart from other professionals in your field, because I know coaches and professional are so many, right? Even in LinkedIn or outside LinkedIn as well. So what sets you apart from other professionals in your field?
I guess experience. I guess I dwell on the experience side of it, and that you don't have to be old to have experience. So you have experience at a young age. So I think it's that. But I go back to the trust. I think it's the trust that you're going to do. You're going to do what you say you're going to do, and make those commitments right at the beginning. Because to me, my definition of sales, if we're talking about sales, my definition of sales is not about persuading somebody to buy a product or service from you. Sales, it's about making it difficult for them not to buy that product or service. and how you do that is really building that trust and influence, that when they walk out the door, they feel confident that you're gonna do what you say you're gonna do. So it's really making sure that you do your homework. Do your homework on the individual, find out the type of person they are, get yourself prepared, dress correctly, present yourself correctly, but anticipate, and that's what I can do and we can all do this. We know what the challenges are going to be, retention. Okay, retention in the business services industry. You can Google it. It's one of the highest problems in the business services industry. It's keeping hold of people. So I go and see somebody and I could just say to them, I'm guessing your retention rate is something you'd like to improve. Well, yes, I would love to. So if you can find a way of bringing that down 4 percentage points, would that be of interest to you? Yes, it would. Ding, ding, I've already uncovered something and shown them that I can do. So anticipate, don't sort of sit there, downloading something and make bad assumptions. Anticipate and I always say, if you're having a conversation with somebody, don't make it a conversation or a discussion or a meeting. Make it an interview. Practice interview skills. Because that will help you every time in actually opening nice open questions, which you're asking me now. Do that in every meeting.
Sure.
And that will actually help you gather the information like you're doing now. I'm speaking much more than you are. So you're being a good interviewer because you're asking me nice open questions and I'm downloading all of the information. So just for everybody watching this, think of everything as an interview. Watch Christiane Amanpour on CNN. She's a great interviewer because she says, with emotion as well, she'll ask a question and say, how do you feel about that? How does that make you feel? Tell me more. And she's got this great technique of getting people just to download everything. And then, of course, she comes in with a curveball at the end. We don't do that, but we use it in a different way. So, I think.
Sure, makes people open and makes people feel more confident and closer to you when you. I always tend to do normal questions and try to build a connection, and it's not easy, but it's not impossible. I think it's very important because at the end of the day we are people. We have to have that human interaction as well, not only go.
And the final thing is find neutral territory, especially if it's going to be a challenging conversation. Don't have that conversation in that person's office. Take them away, or if they're a colleague, watch till they go into the kitchen to make a cup of tea or a cup of coffee, and then go in, find that neutral ground, and that will help as well, because you take away that stigma of superiority or client supplier scenario, whatever it is, and you kind of neutralize that. So that's a good tip for everyone.
Yeah, it's a very good one. Yeah, actually it is. So you have such an extensive experience, and I can imagine you had some situations where people or your potential clients choose not to work with you. Why? What are the reasons, or what are the reasons that happened?
I think in the past it was because I was focusing on, talk about like strengths. I think your strengths are also your weaknesses. So my strength was my ability to sit in front of somebody and be enthusiastically talking to them, which I hope I'm doing right now. But I realized that was my weakness. But what happens, a bit like when you go to see a comedian at the club, or somebody goes to see a comedian at the club and they sit there laughing their head off all night. Then the next morning they come in the office, they go, oh, this comedian last night, God, he was so funny, I nearly wet myself. And then a colleague says, oh, really, tell me one of his jokes. Oh, I can't remember one of his jokes, but God, he was funny. And that's what I found that I was doing, that I was entertaining and I was creating a really nice piece. Oh, yeah, Colin. Yeah, I love seeing Colin.
Yeah,
But
he's such a nice guy, right?
I wasn't turning that into business. I'm talking more about Romania here now. So
Mm.
what I realized, this sort of task orientation, that, okay, keep that personality, don't lose that. And that's a message to everybody. But put that structure there, a bit more seriousness into it. So in answer to your question, in the previous days, that was probably the reason, because they weren't quite sure what the value was with Colin. I was relying on Colin's personality and charisma, whatever word you want to use, to seal the deal. And it wasn't enough. So I had to be a bit more enough. So I get that mixture now. So I make sure that I create that nice rapport, but I go into a serious mode as well. So I think that answers the question in terms of why I get business.
Yeah, the reasons why people choose not to work with you, and you kind of entered also into answering my next question, is how you go about in dealing with those reasons. And you already said that you were observing yourself and realized you have to balance a bit more into the serious the serious discourse, right? Not only being so charismatic and so nice. Do you have any other way of dealing those reservations, and how do you make people, like now, how do you build that conversation?
I think I always focus on that outcome, and like I said, that make it difficult for them not to do business.
Oh yeah.
I actually handle rejection much better than I did in the past, and I think that's what I realize is when somebody says no, it is to maintain that dignity, and to know that in the future, they're probably, if they do need something, likely to come back. So what the reason is you never really know the reason why somebody says no to you. They may tell you, they may say, well, you're too expensive, Colin, or I'm fixed into a contract, or my boss wants to work with ABC company, but you never really know the real reason. What I was finding the real reason was based on what I just said. And this adaptability is so key. So I think, that's the biggest reason why, for me and my personality, if I meet somebody who's more sort of reserved and more introverted, and I go in and go, hey, how are you?
Oh my God.
They'll be very kind to me to my face, and they'll be very reluctant to reject me, but they won't do it. But the other thing is it's like a numbers, staying on the sales subject, excuse me, it's a numbers game. And I remember there's this dear old gentleman near where I live, and I used to see him at the traffic lights every morning. I don't see him anymore, or he's either passed away or he's got a house in Florida, because he was a beggar, if I can use that word, a beggar at the traffic lights. He was a very clever guy, because I kind of learned a lot from this gentleman, and I saw him most mornings. Some days I'd give him one leu, and some mornings I didn't think, and I would either say no, I'm sorry, or I would look away, or look at my phone, or the car would move, or whatever, which is what most people do.
Definitely.
Well, I sat there the one morning, and I did the maths, and I'm thinking, hang on, these lights change every 4 minutes. So every 4 minutes, that old gentleman has enough time to walk up approximately 10 cars asking for money. And I watch, sometimes I'm 11 or 12 or 13 back, so I watch it. And I see on average 1 or 2 people putting their hand out of the window giving him a note. He always had a shirt and tie on, very clever guy. And I was thinking, so that guy, he knows what he earns every day, because he knows every 4 minutes he's going to earn 2 lei. He knows every hour what he's going to earn. He knows every day what he's going to earn. So those 8 people who do what I said, either say, get lost or turn their heads or whatever, they're actually part of his process, because all those 8 rejections, he's happy with those. He's absolutely happy. Yeah, because he knows those 8 rejections are worth 2 lei to him.
Yeah.
So I think that's the way you can deal with with rejection. It
With
is a numbers.
rejection.
Yeah, and focus on those spend the extra time on those valuable projects. Just realize that this is how it goes. And a rejection, as long as you handle it correctly and say, look, I understand if you do have any problems in the future, you know where to come. And a lot of the business I've got is that phone call. So, hey, Colin, remember me? You came to see me 8 months ago.
Yeah.
Well, things didn't work. It didn't work out so well, and I'd like to revisit our sales training program that we invested in, which is the reason why you didn't do business with it. Another long answer.
No, it's amazing. I really love the parallel, the story with the beggar. It is very good for the people that are watching us that are maybe in sales. It's definitely, the rejections are part of the process, and you don't even have to, you can count them if you want, but you can directly put them inside the sales, the success process. Okay, let's see. I just want to know what are the most common outcomes that your clients, the lucky ones that work with you, what do they achieve thanks to your work?
Well, one of the achievements for me is they ask me back. And I would say a customer's not a customer until you get the second order. So that's always the goal for me, is for them to say, we'd like you to come back. And I think we kind of touched on the outcome for me in business performance is that feedback, that not just, as I mentioned, if I go in and do sales, or if I do management leadership training, I don't want them just to come back and say our managers are better leaders. I want them to say, well, actually, our retention rates are better. Our teams working for those people are much happier. The productivity as a consequence has gone up. Spirit in the company is better. I sense it over there. So that's really the outcomes I'm looking for, is kind of a cascade of what I do, and not to be focused on the parts that they think is the problem. And that's the diagnosis. Sometimes they'll say, our profitability is dropped by 2 percentage points. They think the answer is to sell more goods. When it could be management issues, it could be motivation, it could be anything. And that's really the outcomes that I look for, is a total outcome. So when I'm in front of a board of directors, one thing I always insist on, I'll never do business with just a procurement person. I'll always insist on meeting the senior person that I'm dealing with, but also the rest of the board. I actually ask, can I come to your next board meeting and just present myself? I want to look at the HR manager. I want to look at the marketing manager. I want to look at the CFO, and know that I'm going to bring value to them as well. And that's really, and that really gives the confidence on it. And to get your invoices paid, just write "thank you for your business" at the bottom of your invoice. That's what I do. I always get the invoice paid, because the people in accounts just appreciate me saying thank you to them.
Okay, it's such a nice tip. Now we know why your invoices get paid.
On time, I think so. I think people do comment on it. They said you're the only person who says thank you, the accounts team, for the business.
Oh, great! Yeah, we know we have a very interesting tip now. I will just have to remember. Luckily, I can put this video on repeat, and I can see it for many times. Okay. Let's move a bit to the final part. I will try to give you to ask you some questions, a bit of a mixture questions about how you feel, where you are in your journey, and try to get to the end of our interview. Okay. And let's start with, tell us, where are you right now on your journey, and what are the challenges you are facing currently?
Okay, I think where I am on the journey is looking to the next phase in my life, which I would say in about 3 years' time. You heard me mention 3 years. I work everything in 3 years.
Yeah.
So in 3 years, I want to be spending more time on the golf course. That's my goal. And being able to spend more time with my wife, and spend more time seeing my kids and my grandchildren.
Sure.
So that's the goal. And everybody should be selfish. We're not selfish enough. When we say about our
Definitely.
goal, we say we want to do this and that. Forget all that stuff. That's a consequence of it. But what your real goal should be is your personal. Yes. And then if you can set that goal, then everything comes in. So that's my challenge at the moment, is really sort of setting the model of my work and my daily work and my weekly work, what I'm going to be doing for the next years. It's not so much of a challenge, but that's kind of the plan for me, and that's where I want to be. I'm still open to surprises as well. Like the Carpathian thing was a total surprise to me a year ago. You'd said to me a year and a half ago, you might be a global ambassador for a single malt whiskey. I'd say you were crazy, but here I am. So
yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely.
So that's where I am right now.
Great. Yeah. It's still you are still surprising me with so many ideas. I will definitely put more than one in practice. So let's go a bit back to more. How do you feel about, if you would recommend moving to another country? What's that like, to put a definite definition towards that? Moving to another country.
Yeah, I think we touched on it a little bit, but I would add to that by saying just commit. Just fully commit to it. Don't do it by heart. Interestingly, we talked about culture earlier on. When I was in the US, I was helping in terms of expat movement within the organization globally. And it was interesting that moving from the UK to the US or the US to the UK was a big challenge, because the cultures were so similar, or that the habits and the way of life were so similar. And the consequence of that is that your homesickness becomes more profound, because you're seeing similar things around you. And I did witness that when I was in the USA. So I think, look at which country you're going to, and don't be afraid if it's going to somewhere where the culture is, maybe to the Middle East or somewhere where the culture is completely different. Don't be afraid of that, because what it does is actually suck you into that culture, and you embrace it much more, because you don't have that profound homesickness, because you don't have those, you don't have those familiar things around you, whether it's the weather, whether it's the coffee shop, whatever. It's kind of a different world. So I think, in answer to your question, yes, I would recommend moving to another country, but just, I always tell people to think decision making. Think if you're making a decision, think about pretend it's May 2024. You've made your decision. Are you going to be thinking in May 2024, oh God, why did I do this? Or are you going to be thinking, this is a great decision? And most people know what the answer is. So they tend to do what they think they should do, rather than what they really want to personally do. Really, that's my advice: is you're going to move to another country, do it because it's personally right for you, not because your boss encourages you, or somebody's encouraged, or your best mate's living in Abu Dhabi and wants you to move there. Forget all that. Do it because it's personally right for you. And imagine yourself in a year's time. Are you going to regret? It's called buyer remorse. And that happens all the time. Are you going to regret it, or you're going to think it's the best decision? You will know right now the answer to that, and then make the decision from that, basically.
Definitely. We all know, even if we don't want to be aware of it, we know what we feel about something if we give it a chance to think about it and analyze the situation. Okay. I just want to let you know that we have 3 more questions to go.
Okay.
I'm very, very pleased. I'm excited about this. So I would like to know, what would you do differently now, if you could? If you could change something, what would you do differently?
I could easily answer that and reel off a few things, but I don't want to, because I think, your challenges, I don't want to put like cliches, like you look at any famous person's autobiography, the first 4 chapters are failure. So would they say, well, if I could have it different, I wish I'd made my first million right at the beginning? Well, no, because you probably wouldn't be where you are right now. So I wouldn't want to change anything about my life. You know, no, I wouldn't. You know, people say to me, "Don't you wish you had met this person, or you wish this had happened a few years ago, whatever?" And I say, no, I don't, because it's destiny is supposed to, it's supposed to carve out that way. But I know
Definitely.
I'm popping out an answer to you, but yeah, there's things that's happened to me in my life which I think, oh God, why did I do that? Why was I in that position? Yeah, I can look at that, but it's kind of, I've learned from it, and I'm a better person because of that. So I'm glad, despite it may be, even traumatic things, even losing a
Yes,
loved one, through
definitely.
family, loved one, and I've experienced that. I've lost three brothers in my life,
Oh,
I'm
wow.
one of six kids. There's particularly one, and it was the end of my world when he
Mm,
passed away. But fast forward to now, I realize how much he's taught me through his passing, and how he's still my coach, from the other side, and that. So I can't say I want to change things in my past, because it's I believe it's made me the person that I am now. Do I like the person I am now? I think I like myself much more than I did 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago,
And,
etc.
and less than you will in 5 years from now, I'm sure.
I hope so. Yeah, I hope so.
Definitely. I think love is always has an exponential potential of growing. So self-love
Yeah,
even
true,
more. Okay,
true.
let's see. I know you spoke a bit about this, but let's remember, because it seems such an interesting situation. Where do you see your future? Will you stay in Romania? Will you return home, or maybe move to Abu Dhabi?
No, I might visit it, but I won't move there. No, my home is here unless something happens.
Hmm,
We can only manage the controllables in our lives. We can't
definitely.
manage the uncontrollables.
Hmm,
So I'm very, very settled here. I love this country. My kids are both very, very happy. They've got both wonderful wives, wonderful life.
yeah.
Everything's good. So I'm very, very lucky. So I'm blessed, really, in many ways, that this has happened to me. We talked just now about bad things that happened in your life. Well, look, when I look at what I've got right now, I feel very, very blessed. So yeah, I'm very comfortable, I'm very happy, and very settled, and I really don't see myself living anywhere else apart from Romania. If I lived anywhere else, or if me and my wife
Hmm,
lived anywhere else, it would be back in the UK. But who knows? Maybe in 3 years' time, I want to open up a
exactly.
coffee shop in Egypt or something. I don't know. I don't know. So I think that's a wonderful thing. My mother always said to me, life is about options. So just focus on creating options that allow you to do those things. You can either stay where you are, you can go to the same place on holiday every year if you want to, if that's what you want.
Yeah, makes
But
you
have that
happy.
option, have options to do other things. And I think so that's my goal right now, is making sure that I've got those options. But I would guess that if we have this conversation in 5 years' time, I'll still be sat here in dear old Bucharest. You never know.
Yeah.
You never
You
know.
never know. You never know. That's definitely it's definitely the reality. You never know. Okay,
Mm.
let's get to the final question. This is a marketing term, right? Like the CTA, the call to action.
Yeah, yeah, call to action.
What
Yeah.
is your CTA, or what's the conclusion you would like to leave the audience with?
I think sort of gather together a lot of the things that I've said. I think in terms
Hmm,
of that see selfishness is actually a good word, not a bad word. Focus on your own game. Don't worry about what other people are doing, because there's some areas you'll never get to, and you'll be frustrated and unhappy. So focus on what you do and be happy with yourself. When you see yourself on a video or hear yourself speaking, don't think, oh my God, I sound strange or I look strange. No, you don't. That's you. So be happy with you, and really sort of build that profile. We talked about LinkedIn before this call. Look at those things, how people see you, and just think what would be your eulogy. You know, what will people say about you when you're no longer here? And if you build on that CV, make that CV your sort of something to look at and be proud of. And as I say to everybody, just get your CV out wherever it is. It's in some folder somewhere, print it out, but update it, bring it up to date, maybe spice it up a little bit, change your picture. And really sort of be proud of yourself, but always set yourself those 3-year goals, and be influential in getting there, and reach out. Don't wait for things to happen, because you'll be just. I think
you'll keep on waiting forever.
You'll keep on waiting forever. Yeah. I think that kind of wraps up what I would say to that question.
Definitely, yeah, it does, and it sums up all the conversation that we had. It was such a lovely time. It was amazing listening to you and getting to know you a bit more, some of your personal details, your professional details. You have an amazing experience, and I'm sure that you will continue growing. And thank you very, very much for this conversation. I hope everyone will enjoy it or enjoys it while watching us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.